Fantastic. We're live with Ash Nightingale of Nightingale Guitars. Welcome to the interview. And maybe Ash, we can start by asking you.
Hi, how's it going?
Yeah, great. Ash, why don't we start by just getting you to share with us how you got started out in building guitars?
Yeah, so guitar building really started for me. I guess it was sort of two passions of mine colliding, so to speak. I was already pretty into woodworking. I was working in construction and had access to a pretty well-equipped wood workshop. And then I was looking for projects to do in the workshop, and my dad said to me, can you build me a slide guitar? So I sort of thought, right, okay, let's go for it. Let's make a slide guitar, and made that, and it sort of turned out okay. You know, like a few mistakes here and there, but it was like, yeah, this is actually really good fun. And I played more acoustic guitar and fingerstyle, so it was like maybe I could make myself a half decent acoustic guitar. So then I bought all the materials for that. This was back in 2015, and set about I bought a book by a guy called Johnny Kincaid, who's actually based in Bristol, and just set about building this acoustic guitar from his book, and was sort of pleasantly surprised really at the result that I got from building that guitar. And then I actually went traveling immediately after that, so I was sort of traveling all over the world and meeting lots of people, and I sort of had lots of people go, oh, where did you buy that guitar? And it's like, actually I made this one. And they were like, oh no, you didn't make that. And I'm like, yeah, I made that. And yeah, just I suppose it gave me a bit of a buzz really that I'd made this functional thing. And yeah, I guess that led me on to thinking, if I could do this, you know, all the time, I'd be pretty happy with my life really. And so from then it was like I had people asking me, well, can you build one for me? You know, it was friends and family, sort of, yeah, I'll build it for you, you buy the materials, and I'll build it for you basically. So went from there, and been sort of building on and off since then. Always sort of had self-employed carpentry work going on the side, just to prop things up. But this last year, so it was first in November 2020, I took on a commercial premises and basically decided I'm gonna come up with a sort of congruent range of guitars. And in the past, it's always been, you know, doing what people ask me to do, or doing something which I think is going to challenge me. Let's do an archtop guitar. Let's try an asymmetric body joint. Let's try different bracing patterns, that kind of stuff. And now it's like, right, I want to come up with basically a 14, 15, 16, and 17-inch body shape guitars, and come up with a really solid range so I can cater to different people's needs. And that's what this last year has really been about, is getting fully set up in my workshop. I've taken on full-time repair work. So this is, last year was my first year sort of full-time guitar maker, so to speak. You know, balancing my time between repair work and yeah, designing my new models, trying to, you know, get my hands on all the kit that I need to do this. So yeah, that's basically how I got into it and where I'm sort of at the minute.
Great, awesome. And I'm just wondering, you were mostly self-taught, right? In terms of
Yeah,
sort of building.
Yeah, so I was based in Cornwall before, and I was sort of looking for an apprenticeship, and they were quite hard to come by in that area. So I actually took an apprenticeship in this country, we call it bench joinery, which is working with wood, and basically making doors, windows, staircases, bespoke furniture, all of that kind of stuff to quite a high-end level. So that was my actual background and training. So lots of experience sort of working with machines, hand tools, and just, you know, wood in general, lots of hardwood worked with. So that was my sort of hands-on skill base. And then aside from that, without the actual guitar making apprenticeship, it was just like, how many books can I get my hands on, basically? So you know, in the beginning it was the Jonathan Kincaid book, Compiano book. More recently it's been the books by Trevor Gore, Gerard Gillet, and also the books of Urban Samoji, which have been, you know, very insightful. So yeah, that's the self-taught approach I've taken. But yeah, definitely sort of like a lifelong student of guitar making is the way I like to see myself.
Awesome. And speaking of Trevor Gore, he is most well known for falcate bracing, I think.
Yeah.
So maybe now's a good time to maybe just talk a little bit about your sort of overall build philosophy and sort of how you achieve the sound that you want to achieve.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I suppose the first thing to say is, on the philosophical level, I like to think that you never stop learning. So the moment you sort of think, right, I know it all, is the moment that you sort of stop progressing, really. So I like to try and, you know, keep always aiming to learn, you know, continue to learn, continue to try and develop. Every single guitar has got to be a little bit better each time. But in terms of my construction methods, I've actually got some components right here. Starting off with a rim set, I'm making laminated sides, and you start off with a laminated side, which is already very stiff in and of itself, and it conforms very well to the mold. And then you add to that a solid laminated set of linings, and by the time you've added that in, there is virtually no flex to that whatsoever. So that's the first thing I start with, is a very, very rigid rim set. And then what I've been experimenting with over the years is responsive back. So I'm doing an X-brace back. This is more for fingerstyle players. That's sort of because that's my background. That's what I'm aiming my guitars at, are fingerstyle players. So the X-brace back allows me to tune the back a little bit more, and I think get a little bit more resonance out of the back itself. And that gives you a more sort of like complex sound. If you're going to be sitting with the guitar on your lap and playing fingerstyle, it allows the back to actually resonate. And then on the other side, you've got the top. And in terms of the top, my sort of philosophy for that is trying to take as much guesswork out of the equation as possible. So I've built a load of deflection testing jigs. I mean, this is probably where the Urban Samoji books have come into play, is trying to do things based on deflection. And yeah, I've sort of had some really interesting data actually from testing all of my bracewood based on deflection and weight. And aside from anything else, that allows me to sort of take out any anomalies. I can say, right, that piece of bracewood is like, it looks the same as the rest, but it's really heavy, and you wouldn't be able to tell that just by sort of holding it or looking at it. So I can take all of those sort of bits of bracewood out of the equation, and make sure all my top wood conforms to sort of a target window that I'm looking for. And then aside from that, it's just making sure that the top is very lightly braced and free to resonate. But I think also that very stiff rim set does help with that. You know, it gives it a very solid foundation to vibrate from. And then moving on to the neck, again, I've got a component here, which is one of my neck blanks. So I'm using a laminated neck construction, which I feel is a stable and very strong, stiff construction. And then adding to that a fingerboard extension. So it's basically an elevated neck with a fingerboard extension, which it changes the neck angle. It means the taper of the guitar is on the front rather than the back. So the strings come in steeper to the top, which I believe, if you think about how a harp works, the strings come into the soundboard of a harp at 45 degrees, and you get that sort of real nice bell-like harp kind of sound. And I think you get more of that out of a guitar with a taper on the front rather than the back. So the other thing about that neck construction is it allows me to run carbon fiber straight through and over the body of the guitar. So it, again, doing all this repair work that I've been doing, you see, you know, all sorts, and a lot of the time you have either a hump or you have like a ski jump going on at the last sort of handful of frets beyond the neck to body joint. So putting that carbon fiber through there, you know, keeps that all true. And I'm doing also a fully removable neck. So 4 bolts, that's again from the Trevor Gore books, I think, has made me think that's actually a really good idea, that you should be able to fully remove the neck from the body for repair and maintenance purposes. And then moving up the guitar, there's going to be a titanium truss rod in there rather than a steel truss rod, because I feel like a lot of guitars are very sort of neck heavy, and I feel like there should be a certain amount of weight to the neck, so you're not losing energy. But I feel like it's a fine line. You wouldn't want the neck to be made out of concrete, but on the other end of the spectrum, you wouldn't want to make it out of balsa wood in order to make it light. So it's sort of finding that balance, that sweet spot where you've got enough mass in the neck that it's not absorbing energy, but it's light enough that it's not uncomfortable to the player as well. So yeah, I think that's pretty much sums up my guitars at the minute, and what I'm trying to achieve with them.
Maybe you can just ask a little bit about that titanium truss rod. Is that an adjustable truss rod, or is that fixed?
Yeah, it's a 2-way adjustable truss rod. Yeah, just opposing thread and Allen key, and it's going to be adjusted from the headstock end.
Ah, right. I see. Nice. Now's a good time as any, I guess, to ask you about which woods you prefer.
Which woods do I prefer? In terms of top woods, I've stuck mainly to spruce. I just find it's sort of I get the most predictable results out of the spruce. Especially recently, sort of found the moon spruce and got my hands on some of that, and it's just the nice material that I've found to work with for a top wood. Just even the tap tone of it and just looking at the material is just like, it is just such a nice material to work with. So that's where I'm heading in terms of top wood. For back and sides, I'm sort of sticking more with the sort of tropical woods. Again, like finding I'm getting nicer results and nicer sounding guitars with the tropical woods. I have worked with some English woods. I've worked with sycamore and English walnut, and you can get quite nice results with those. Sort of quite a nice bright sound out of the sycamore and walnut. Both sort of have quite a bright sound to them. But yeah, I'm finding the tropical woods, like the rosewood family woods, are giving me more of a balanced range, like quite a nice bass response, but quite good balance across the whole spectrum. So what else have I got going on in here at the minute? I've got some ebonies. I've actually not completed any guitars with ebonies yet, but I'm working with ebony at the minute, so that's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. And also Wenge. I think Wenge is very interesting. A lot of people sort of saying it's, you know, almost similar in characteristics to Brazilian rosewood. So I'm making guitar at the minute with Wenge, and that's also going to be quite an interesting one to see how it turns out. But it has a very nice sort of ringing tap tone to it, and I'm hoping that's going to carry through into the finished instrument. So
Great, great. Well, you're a brave man to use Wengi.
yeah,
Yeah, I think everybody's lost probably a couple of chisels and probably a few block planes in their paws at some point in time.
yeah. I
So
suppose the only other thing to say about tonewood actually is I'm really liking Spanish cedar. I use quite a bit of Spanish cedar in my construction because it's like a mahogany family wood, but it's just that little bit lighter. So sort of rather than searching out for the really light pieces of mahogany, I tend to just, I have a source of really nice Spanish cedar that I can get. And so I use that for all the linings. I use it for the neck blocks. I also use it for neck wood. And it just means I know that it's nice and lightweight, but it's got all the sort of attractive characteristics of mahogany. It's nice and stable. It's nice and easy to work. All of those good things.
Right, right. And how has it been trying to source woods? Because everybody's been telling me it's getting harder and harder and harder and harder, I guess.
Yeah, I've got a few sort of reliable suppliers that I lean on for most of my wood, and it is challenging at times. I have to say, getting the quality that I'm looking for. I've got a few pieces of wood kicking around the workshop which I've bought for the purposes of making guitars, and when I get to inspect it closer, it's like, you know what, actually that's not good enough for one of my guitars. Like finding neck wood without any run out and that kind of thing is it is hard work. And I feel like if you're making a high-end guitar though, that there's a certain amount of getting materials into the workshop and then choosing the materials that you're going to use for your guitars. And there's a certain amount of materials that just will never make it into your guitars because it just doesn't quite make the grade. And I tend to use that stuff for, you know, neck and tail blocks and stuff like that are sort of less critical to the construction.
Right. Yeah, I guess I think one of the biggest things is we've all seen how the prices of woods have really gone up. Like even over the past 2 or 3 years, suddenly everything is at least it's at least 4 times as expensive.
Yeah.
You know, have you noticed that as well?
Yeah, I have actually. Yeah, I mean, even recently I went to order some wood from one of my regular suppliers, and he said, "Oh, you've caught me at a good time because I'm literally just putting my prices up again." So it's like, let's get in there quick and order some wood before you put your prices up again. But yeah, it's definitely been steadily increasing. I mean, even the wood I'm using for all my formers and stuff like that, you know, sheet material even has just gone through the roof. Over here, it's like a lot of it's to do with Brexit as well and stuff like that, but can be a bit of a challenge.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. I'm just thinking about sort of the way that you used to build compared to what you're doing now in terms of your models, because I remembered that you were kind of rationalizing, for the want of a better word, your sort of model lineup.
Yeah.
And you're sort of developing the new ones. Could you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Sorry, so about the
new models. Yeah, because so it's more about the new ones. I know the ones you've built in the past, fantastic, fabulous, but I know that you've got sort of plans to come up with, you're developing sort of new models.
Yeah. So talk about the new models I'm developing. Yeah, so yeah, essentially I've got 4 different models, and like I say, it's right now it's stepping away from the stuff I've done in the past in order to get these 4 models out onto the market basically. And so it's a 14-inch model. I mean, I work in millimeters. I'm here in the UK, so all metric over here. So my model names are N360, which is basically a 360 mil lower bout, and then there's the N380, which is a 380 mil lower bout. That's sort of 15-inch, like an OM. Then you've got the N400, which is a 400 mil lower bout, 16-inch, like sort of like a small jumbo. And then there is the N430, which is like a 17-inch jumbo. And I guess, yeah, the idea behind that is just catering to everybody's needs. I've had various different people ask me for various different things over the years, so it makes sense to have something to cater for everybody. And specifically, you know, the 17-inch could be a baritone guitar, it could be a long scale, like a big, you know, fan fret guitar with big fat bass response. And then on the other end of the spectrum, the small body, you know, could be a nice short scale small body guitar for somebody as well. So it's just about having that full range. And they're all going to feature basically all of the construction methods I just talked about are going to be featured in sort of all of those models.
Right, that's great. And I noticed that you have actually quite a wide range of scale lengths. So I know you do this sort of short, long, longer, like 26-inch, and then baritone scales. Could you, I mean, probably most of us would be interested in sort of the difference between, you know, the sort of the Martin Long scale, the 25.4, 25.5 inch, and the 26-inch scale. I mean, you know, what's your experience been with that?
Yeah, I would say the 25.4 645 mil scale length is great for sort of, you know, people who want to play standard tuning. Maybe if you do the occasional sort of drop D, double drop D tuning, it will cope with that. But if you want to start dropping down to, like, you know, I've got a tuning which is in C sharp, and I feel like if you're using a 645 mil scale length for that, your strings are just going to be slightly too much on the baggy side, and you're going to lose that clarity of tone. So I think the 660 mil is for anyone who's, you know, seriously into drop tunings, you know, that kind of fingerstyle playing. That's why I offer that, because the short scale and the sort of 25.4 inch scale, I feel are best sort of standard tuning players.
Great, awesome. And multi-scales, fan frets, how do you like them? I know you offer them and people do like them, but personally, how do you react to them?
I do like them. I do like the idea of them. I mean, the way I see it is, like, if you think about, like, say a violin, it's got a very short scale. It's very, you know, fine-tuned for treble. And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, you've got something like a bass guitar or a double bass, and that's got a long scale, and that's very fine-tuned for bass, you know, bass frequencies. So with the guitar having 6 strings and it only having 1 scale length, if you have a short scale guitar, it's probably going to be pretty good for treble. It might be a little bit weak on the bass. On the other end, if you've got a long scale guitar, it might have a great bass response, but the trebles might just be a bit thin. You know, with a fan fret guitar, you can actually fine tune each string, you know, or an average. You can actually have great trebles, great bass. And also, I think ergonomically, naturally, when you're playing the guitar, your hand does sort of, you know, rotate a little bit. So I think ergonomically, people look at it and they go, well, that's going to be uncomfortable to play. But actually, when you play one, it's like, this is really nice, actually. I think it's about, you have a perpendicular fret, somewhere you have a perpendicular fret, and it's about choosing the right spot for that perpendicular fret. So I tend to put mine further towards the nut. So like either fret 3 or fret 5, because then your hand tends to be sort of straight when you're nearer the nut, and then gradually rotate as you get further towards the bridge. I feel like that's probably the most comfortable way to make a fan fret guitar.
Right. Right. I tend to agree with you. My biggest bugbear with the fan fret guitars is when the scale lengths on the top and the bottom string are so extremely different. You have this wide splay, and then what ends up happening is that you tend to over rotate the wrist, without following on the elbow, because what should happen is the elbow comes up and then your wrist remains straight, but you tend to do that, and then that's when all the trouble begins, for me at least. So you know, in the past when I've tried them, I always like the sort of horizontal or vertical fret, however, whichever orientation you look at, the zero, the parallel one, to be further up, like you mentioned. So absolutely something that I totally absolutely agree with. So yeah, and I guess time is kind of running a little bit short, so maybe we can just wrap up a little bit by asking what's next for you and what's coming up.
Yeah, I guess for me, it's all about these 4 new models at the minute. I see those taking probably until summer this year to complete, just because I'm sure other guitar builders out there can relate to the fact when you're building new models, you're building all new templates, all new molds, everything's fresh, you know, and still figuring out 1 or 2, you know, construction methods that I'm gonna be using. So it's really about getting through these 4 builds, getting them complete, and then it's, you know, I would like to get a lot more photography and also video footage of these guitars, because I feel like that's something I've been lacking a little bit in the past. Is you know, it's all well and good creating these guitars and sending them out into the world, but if you haven't got you know, photos and videos of those guitars, then you've got no way of showing your work. So that's something I'd also like to focus on a little bit more. And beyond that, I would like to do some shows. I think you know, researching what shows are available. I don't know, sort of I know a lot of the shows are struggling at the minute, and some of them are sort of not there anymore, but I would like to try and find a few that I could go to. So that would be something else to focus on, really.
Right. Awesome. Well, all the best, and we will catch up soon.
Yeah, nice one. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks.